JCPenney is helping hardworking families across America save even more all Labor Day weekend. That's right, we got you. Celebrate a 4-day super savings weekend with 20% off already great prices. Plus, save an extra 10% across the store. That's extra savings in addition to our huge end-of-summer deals. Grab your coupon on the JCP app and save all you want. Shopping is back. JCPenney. Coupon required and valid on select styles 9.2 to 9.5. Exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
You could save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, but when we just come out and say it, it feels like it falls a bit flat. So instead, we're going to hire a professional voice actor and pay him absurd amounts of money to say,
I like this product.
Not sure why that was better. I mean, I'm a professional too, but we didn't pay him to say the business part, so back to me. Save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive. Sorry, I know hearing me say it was a bit of a letdown. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. A lot to talk about today. I've been doing my research on Memphis. We're going to talk a lot about that. Of course, we're also going to preview the SEC weekend because you have a couple of SEC teams in action on Thursdays. We're going to go ahead and get that out of the way today, and we'll kind of recap that on Friday and kind of look ahead to the season opener. How about that? I'm so excited for you guys to be here, too. I mean, a lot's changed on campus. Let me go ahead and prepare you, too. There are going to be some changes, okay? Leave early. Be patient. Wives, listen to me. Listen to me. I am depending on you as your good friend and host. And you know that I love you. If nobody else has told you today, you're an absolutely beautiful princess of a woman. Make sure that your husband leaves early. No matter what he says, no matter what he, I understand. I'm not going to listen to that long-haired tattooed freak. No, wives, listen to me. There have been a few changes around campus. There's been some construction. So maybe, a lot of things maybe you're somewhat familiar with have changed. The last thing we want is anybody getting salty on game day. Leave early. Spend more time in Starkville. Get up here, get your tailgate set up, whatever. Go spend some money and get ready for a great game. But wives, listen to me. You know your husband doesn't know better than me. You know this, right? You know this right out of the gate. Leave early. Also of note, these event management people are nice people doing the best they can. Many of them don't know their way around campus. They're just there to kind of assist you with where they're positioned. Please be patient with those folks. Please. Right? Please just be patient with them. Because if you're in the wrong lot, they're not going to know where the other lot is. I'm just telling you. So get on hellstate.com, do a little research, be prepared, make sure you know where you're going. Nothing's worse than to the people behind you than you to show up and be, unaware of where you're supposed to be. And you're dependent on somebody that doesn't know where you're supposed to be to tell you how to get there. So relax, leave early, let's have a great day together. Speaking of great days, we're going to have a great one September 30th. Man, we're 30 days away from the show, man. It's all coming together quickly. Matter of fact, if you are in the Starkville area next week, you'll start seeing some digital billboards promoting the show. If you live in the Golden Triangle, you'll soon be listening to radio ads on 99 The Fox, North Mississippi's rock station. We're promoting the show, man. We're serious about the show. This isn't some deal where we're just going to go pay a few bucks and then, hope for the best. We're getting out of here. We're doing things right. If I'm going to attach my name to something, it's going to be done right. And so working through some things has taken up a lot of my time. Not going to lie about it. And, the good thing is we're kind of finally starting getting to the end of it. Now I'm kind of worried a little about PA, so I'm working with Lillian Access Sound people, talking to some local people. If we need to bring in some stuff, we're going to bring in some stuff. We're going to make sure it's a great event. You can find tickets at eventbrite.com. That's eventbrite.com. And it's on all my social media stuff. So if I've tweeted it out. I'm probably spamming my followers to the point that they're like, Steve, come on, dude, really? Well, you know what? Buy some tickets, okay? Buy some tickets because once we sell out, we'll stop promoting the event. And I would say we're over a third of the way towards a sellout. We had a really good start. Still got a ways to go, of course. But, we feel like once all this promotion starts and we get a little bit closer to the show, we are going to sell out. Now, if you're interested in maybe supporting the event, but maybe you don't want to attend or you can't attend, you can buy some tickets and you can email them to me, and I will make sure they get in the hands of some Mississippi State students that perhaps can't afford a ticket. Because this is about re-energizing the rock scene in Mississippi, but also raising money for a great cause, which is the Bulldog Initiative. So we're getting some really cool things together. It has been a lot of work. I will admit to you, while I feel like I have been especially efficient with all of this, getting things done, it's been a lot of work. It has been. Now, today's a productive day. We're gonna get some things off the plate today, and then basically all we're gonna have to deal with here in the next couple of days is just kind of making sure we're gonna have to bring in some auxiliary PA to kind of supplement what Hobie's has. And so I say that if you've been to a show at Hobie's, this is gonna be much louder. The sound is gonna be more dynamic and probably a lot fuller. So we're getting all that taken care of. So I thank so many of you that have been so supportive of this event. You guys are awesome. And maybe I don't say it enough, but I love you all. And even if you're not a rock fan, you're a Bulldog fan, so you're part of my family. That's the way I see it. And if you believe in me, if you believe in rock and roll, you believe in Mississippi State, you need to support this event. And if that means buying some tickets and donating them, then that's what you can do. That's your way that you can help. I've had a lot of people that have reached out and said, hey, Steve, not really a rock guy, but I believe in what you're doing, and I want to support you. And I am so incredibly appreciative of that. And so that's how you can get involved. Buy tickets, and they will be sent to your email, and you can forward them to me at srobertson@genespage.com. How easy is that? If you get lost, you forget my email address, you can DM me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever, and I'll give you the email address. Let me thank real quickly our sponsors that are helping the event come true. It's Big River Rental of Canton, Mississippi, Voller Law Firm of Starkville, Campus Bookmark, Discount Building Materials of Starkville, Harvey's Portico, Resilient Life Counseling, Security Technology Supply, Soul Recovery, the Bell Smith, and William Wells Tire and Auto. How about that? So give those people your business, because they're doing what they can to help me put on a killer rock show in Starkville as we get ready to make Mississippi rock again, and then raise some money for your student athletes, right? What could be better? And I've got some incentives, too, to help you guys buy some merch when you come to the show. I'm excited about it. I'm going to MC the event. I've got some other things that we're doing that night that maybe you're not expecting that are going to be awfully, awfully cool. And matter of fact, I spoke to Stevie Blaze Saturday. He was over in London, and he was telling me how excited he is about the show. At one time, Stevie lived here in Starkville. His wife, of course, is from Noxapater. Her family's there in Winston County. So Starkville is a special place to him. And if you guys are unfamiliar with Lily Nax, too, they were originally based out of New Orleans. And in some respects, kind of a small fish in a big music pond. And then things began to take off. And they eventually, Steve relocated to Mississippi. And while they claim New Orleans as their home, we claimed them as our own, because we all snuck into the Town Creek Saloon with our fake IDs and went and enjoyed a killer rock show. So we're going to bring that back, also with two young up-and-coming bands in Mississippi. If you haven't heard them, you should. I'm going to go see Four Way Stop Friday. I'm going to head down to Vicksburg and go see those guys play Friday. It won't be a major show. They're playing the casino there, kind of providing some background music. I'm going to go check those guys out, meet the rest of the band. And then Twist is going to be playing after the Memphis game at Two Brothers. So you got a chance to go see both of those bands. If you're unfamiliar with them, go check them out. You can actually, and let me give a little plug here to Four Way Stop. You can find Four Way Stop on iTunes. And they've got an original song on there called Wicked Woman. Now, they got some covers on there as well, but you can find Wicked Woman, kind of a southern rock type deal. And Twist is completely different. They don't have any music released yet. It is currently being engineered and mastered. And then they'll be available. And so probably by the time that we get ready for the show, you'll be able to download that music off iTunes and be able to check them out. And Lily Nax, of course, dropped a brand new album about 2 weeks ago, From Womb to Tomb. I've listened to that thing over and over again. And the first album with Brent Graham as the singer, beginning to develop some favorites. But I think The Golden Dragon is probably my favorite song on the new album. And it's a much different album, right? They're kind of doing maybe a concept album. And I like it. Feelings of Absinthe is probably the next single. So go check those guys out. But more importantly, come and chill with us at Rock Vegas, September 30th. Hobie's on Main. They're going tickets on sale now. Be sure and check that out. All right, let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I love Bulldog Burger Company more than a friend. I love them. I absolutely love them. I would hold their hands right now if they were near me because I want them to know that I love them. You will love them too. There's some restaurants you go and you just have a meal. With Bulldog Burger Company, you have a relationship, man. You can count and depend on them. When other people or other, situations in life are being unfaithful, you're going to get consistency from Bulldog Burger Company, right? You can go there and Bulldog Burger Company is going to come through every single time. Great people doing a great job at a great price, great portions, great locations, 3 of them now to choose from. University Drive here in Star Vegas. Come check out the new patio area when you're in town this weekend. Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the newest one, Lake Harbor Drive there in the original Flowwood area. Be sure and go check them out. You'll be glad you did. Have the chocolate shake to go. You owe it to yourself, right? And maybe you don't feel like a hamburger. You should. You're going to Bulldog Burger Company, right? You're going there to eat. I would encourage you to get the Bulldog if you're just starting out, and then maybe kind of broaden your horizons in the visits to come. But I've been kind of had a hankering for that BLT salad, the grilled version with ranch, because I'm from South Mississippi, right? So go by and check them out today. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, let's talk a little bit about Memphis. They've done some media opportunities since we've spoken. Ryan Silverfield, I transcribed everything he had to say about Mississippi State yesterday. Made that a free article over at genespage.com. You guys like those articles. You read those a lot. I think everybody likes to know, hey, what are they saying about us? Maybe that's just kind of how life works. We'll see. But let's get into some of that. And Coach Silverfield mentioned Will Rogers and Emmanuel Forbes by name. Very impressed with Will Rogers. Talks about what a great fit he is in the Mike Leach offense. And a lot of that may be coach speak, but there is some truth to every bit of that too, right? I think we all realize that. I mean, Will Rogers has become a very prolific quarterback. And so here's the deal. People are well aware of the fact that Will Rogers is going to know where to go with the football. And Silverfield kind of spoke about that at length. Big fan of Will Rogers. Of course, they like their quarterbacks. I think an awful lot too. So could be a battle of quarterbacks, and if that's the case, I'll take ours. One of the things I wanted to share with you guys too is about cowbells. Everybody talks about cowbells. Everybody whines and cries and oh my gosh, they got the cowbells. The one way to stop the cowbells is like to win, right? We don't get loud when we're losing, but when we're winning and we got you on the ropes, we're going to get awfully loud. So here's what Silverfield had to say about the cowbells, and I quote, "We just have to listen to the cowbells for about 5 more days. That's about the only difference. Our guys will be dialed in and focused. There are some distractions as you go on the road, whether it's staying in a hotel or getting on a bus to make that trip. We know what kind of atmosphere is going to be down there in Starkville. That's the nature of it, but we welcome the challenge of it. That's part of college football. The bigger and better the environment, the more exciting it is." I agree, Coach. I expect our guys to take that bull by the horns and be excited about it. The loudest environment I've ever been involved with as a coach was in the NFC Championship in the Superdome against the Saints. It was deafening. We had Brett Favre then. It was a game that went to overtime, 5 turnovers. They also got in trouble for Bountygate. That was one of those games that led to it. We actually practiced with headphones just to try to block out the noise. I'm sure that's going to be a very similar environment, speaking of Mississippi State. They do a great job. They have a great fan base. Those cowbells. I'm not going to use the word annoyance. I will leave that up to you, but they've done a heck of a job creating an environment there. I think our guys are excited about it. They know what's at stake. We've been practicing in it. Hopefully we handle it flawlessly and not let it be an issue. I go back and proof my article. But here's the deal with that. I spoke to Bookie Watson last night. Bookie Watson, Mississippi State's middle linebacker. And I guess it was Theo DeRosa from the Columbus Dispatch that asked him, hey, can you really prepare for the cowbells? And he's like, no, you can't. You simply can't. And that's what we hear all the time. It's kind of like one of those deals where you can't simulate opponent's speed or intensity in practice. And that's just the reality of life. you can't simulate the cowbells. Now, you can do your best. I mean, you can get out there and hook the speakers up, and you can play Metallica or Avenged Sevenfold or something, and work on your communication, your silent cadence and things like that. But when the Mississippi State fan base realizes you're on the ropes and there's a big play coming, that cacophony of sound will swallow you alive. I think it's an important thing to understand. You don't understand the emotion of the cowbell. You can handle the racket maybe, but what about out there when you go out there and you drop a pass and all of a sudden there's 55,000 cowbells letting you know about it? I don't care who you are or where you're from, there is an emotional penalty for being an opponent coming to Davis Wade Stadium. And a big part of that is the cowbells. Now, I'll say this, we want to ring responsibly. We do. Some of you should probably take some time each day to practice ringing responsibly. But I commend our fan base. We can't ring the bell when the center's over the ball. And there are very few instances where that happens. Our fan base done a great job with that. I spoke to a former Mississippi State coach a couple years ago that took a job with another SEC school. And one of the things that he mentioned that he never thought about when he was on the Mississippi State staff is how it's a bigger distraction when the bells stop ringing. Like they're ringing, 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 and then we stop, and then everybody stops ringing and starts yelling. He said that is an incredible distraction. He goes, because like in your mind, you're thinking, okay, we're dealing with all this racket. Well, now the racket changes. And he goes, and all of a sudden, it's almost confusing. And so I think that's something, too, maybe an unintended consequence, of the cowbell compromise, is that we're actually making it more of a distraction by not ringing when the center's over the ball. It's crazy. Well, when you go down to Tiger Stadium, they don't ever put up a shh sign, hands down, none of that, right? A lot bigger stadium, a lot bigger fan base. It gets really loud up there. Our opponents don't like the cowbell, which is all the more reason to use it. But I do think it provides a competitive advantage, but not the way that I think some people, if you go read other message boards, they say we ring them all the time, and we don't. We don't. We've been very good with that. And I guess we've only been fined with one time since the cowbell compromise. They should never fine us anyway. It's a football game, right? Hey, Bulldog business owners and hiring managers out there, the holiday season's right around the corner. Don't remind you, right? You probably got some staffing needs that you need to fill. Well, let me tell you about our friends at LinkedIn. As you get ready to gear up for your hiring needs, make sure that your small business, or large business for that matter, is firing on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it a whole lot easier to find the right people that you want to talk to fast and free. Create a free job post in just minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of nearly 810 million people. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, and you can find people within your network to help fill your needs. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience to maximize your hiring potential. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality applicants versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster than ever. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Maybe it's time that you give it a try. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/boneyard. That's linked, LinkedIn.com/boneyard. Terms and conditions may apply.
JCPenney is helping hardworking families across America save even more all Labor Day weekend. That's right, we got you. Celebrate a 4-day super savings weekend with 20% off already great prices. Plus, save an extra 10% across the store. That's extra savings in addition to our huge end of summer deals. Grab your coupon on the JCP app and save all you want. Shopping is back. JCPenney. Coupon required and valid on select styles 9/2 to 9/5. Exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
So they've done some other media stuff too, and I want to share. Tim Cramsey is the new offensive coordinator at Memphis. To give you a little bit of his background, Let's get over here to the trusty tab on the computer. So Tim Cramsey is an Allentown, Pennsylvania native. He's younger than me, which is always interesting. I'm at that age, where the coaches and coordinators now are younger than me. I'm from the 1900s. That is to be expected. He played at the University of New Hampshire as a quarterback and as a long snapper. What a combination there. Eventually went back to coach in the high school ranks once his playing career was done. Worked his way up to coach at his alma mater. Was a tight ends and fullback coach from 2003 to 2005. Eventually elevated to running backs coach. Took over the quarterbacks in 2008 and then named the offensive coordinator from 2009 to 2011. He left there, went to FIU for a year as the OC and quarterback coach. 2013, he was hired at Montana State, a long way from home. Also the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Stayed there through the 2015 season and then was at Nevada for a year as the OC and quarterback coach. And in 2017, Sam Houston State, he's the OC and quarterback coach. And then Charles Huff gets a job, former Mississippi State assistant coach Charles Huff, gets a head coaching job at Marshall back in 2018, and he hired him. And now this is his first year at the University of Memphis. So let's kind of look at what he did last year. Now, one thing that's interesting is he did say, people ask him, what do you like to run on offense? He goes, well, it depends on what a team has. Kind of want to tailor the offense around the skill set of the available players. I commend that. Sometimes you have to be true to yourself, and every year you're making some adjustments to your foundational standards. But Marshall last year, 7-6 record overall, 5-3 within their league, scored 33 points as a team. They ran for 2,320 yards, which is interesting. I guess the net there is 2,109. So 162 yards per game. Not balanced, but running enough to make it interesting. They threw for 3,830 yards, just under 300 yards a game. So basically 2 passes for 1 run. Will we see some of that at Memphis? I suspect, at this point in guys' career, they kind of are who they are. You don't see a lot of innovation in that respect. You may change some plays or some route trees, but when it comes to play calling, people's tendencies rarely change. Now, Memphis probably has a little bit better running back room than Marshall did, so we might see a little more run. One of the things I thought was interesting that Coach Cramsey said in his press conference is that, hey, we want to get 4 yards on first down, 4 yards on second down, getting a third and manageable or third and short. So Duncan, swing passes, bubble screens, things like that, probably similar to what they're going to see a lot of us from, right? But he talks about staying on schedule, and that's become kind of a catchphrase for coaches these days. But they're not looking for the big play per se. They're trying to kind of methodically move the ball down the field. That appears to be his philosophy, and it's a good one. When you can consistently do it, you can win a lot of games, eat up a lot of clock, put your team in the end zone, kind of control the flow of the game. Very interesting. Now, Mckaylan Pounder's former Mississippi State commitment, Mckaylan Pounder, is now been named the starting left tackle at Memphis. Interesting, to say the least. Now, you may be somewhat unfamiliar with the Mckaylan Pounder story. Now, first of all, I'll tell you, I am a Mckaylan Pounder's fan. I am. And I heard from the very beginning he was going to commit to Mississippi State. He did. Things were great. And then some folks from Ole Miss started playing around, basically manipulated the kid. I don't care your version of events, Ole Miss people. You can clip this, share it on social media. I don't care. You did a disservice to this young man. You absolutely did. To get at Mississippi State, you play with a kid, and maybe things work out better for him at Memphis. Maybe they do. But you cost him a chance to play in the Southeastern Conference. You did. So he flips to Ole Miss, and then shortly before signing day, Mckaylan Pounder shows up at the field house and asks, hey, Coach, do you have my letter of intent? No, I don't have it. You don't have it? No, I don't have it. Coaches get on the phone, call up there and say, hey, we're not going to sign him. And basically tried to say, hey, well, we didn't really recruit him. We didn't try to flip him, other than the text messages, right? So Mckaylan Pounder's made a bad decision and was manipulated by some people that are enemies of Mississippi State. He wanted to come back. and recommit to Mississippi State. That ship had sailed. At that point, Mississippi State was closing in on signing Cannon Boone. And so Mississippi State moved on. Now, some would argue, it's like, hey, Mississippi State should have taken him back. I don't know. There was a part of me back then, I said, you know what, we got a chance to be the hero here. Ole Miss is getting this PR explosion, and you can see it didn't change anything, right? We always talk about that. Well, it's going to hurt them. Well, doesn't always work out that way. People are prisoners of the moment, right? So Mckaylan Pounder was interested in coming back. Mississippi State did not reciprocate that interest. I thought State, again, could have been the PR hero here. And now you look at him and, hey, the guy's going to be a Division I starting left tackle. And you look at some of the issues we have had at tackle, it'd have been nice to have him, right? But it's going to be an emotional game. I'm sure Mckaylan Pounder, hey, he envisioned himself coming and playing at Mississippi State. He's going to take that field, playing against Mississippi State. The cowbells will ring against him. He's going to play against some of his friends. It's going to be an emotional undertaking. Number one, you're starting at left tackle against an SEC team. You're going to be pairing up with Jordan Davis and DeMonte Russell. That is a long day in and of itself. But you're coming back home, and I'm sure there's a part of him, whether he will admit it or not, it's really not our business, but those feelings of what might have been. If I'd stuck here, maybe I'd be playing in the SEC. But you know what? I wish the kid the best. I do. I like the young man. I do. I think it was very unfortunate the way all that was handled. He's a young person. I think the adults should have been adults. And the people say, well, Steve, decisions have consequences. I absolutely agree with that. And he learned a tough lesson about life. I just don't like the fact that he was manipulated and then ultimately, had to go outside of the conference. But you know what? The good thing is he did have an opportunity reasonably close to home. And I hope he makes the best of it. I do. I hope he has an all-conference career. I hope he has a tough day on Saturday, but I hope he has a great season and a great career at Memphis. I do. I don't harbor any ill will in my heart towards Mckaylan Pounder. I don't. It wasn't handled well. And this is a young man that I think got caught up in this shell game of PR that our arch rivals sometimes use. But, that's going to be interesting. How will he handle the emotional component of this game? Against the defense is going to throw things at him he's never seen before. It's kind of the reality of life, right? I think the guy's going to be a good player, for sure. But he's in for a tough day Saturday. No matter how it comes out, he's in for a tough day. Now, another thing that Coach Cramsey mentioned is the tight ends. He mentioned specifically that he likes the tight ends at Memphis. So what that tells me is they're going to utilize the tight end some to kind of slow down the pass rush. Maybe, show a block, slip out in the pass pattern, kind of put the linebacker in conflict, and maybe run that 5-yard tight end out that's become so in vogue since the advent of the forward pass. So look for them to utilize their backs and their tight ends kind of in the short to intermediate passing game to kind of loosen some things up. Because we're going to get after you. We're going to bring a lot of heat. They're going to make a huge decision to try to get the ball out. Now, that's the thing, too. We got to put them in third and long. We can't let them just sit out there and pitch and catch all day and work the perimeter and work that little 5-yard dig and that sort of stuff. We've got to make them get in third and long to give our pass rush a chance to get there. Now, this Memphis running back core, I think, is going to be really good within their league. I think they have a tough assignment playing against us, but the reality of it is these guys are pretty good. They're pretty good. They're going to try to run the football to kind of establish things. And I think one of the most important things about this game for Mississippi State is we have got to get out early. Get out early and kind of get them off their game plan a little bit. All of a sudden, if you're able to get some separation that first half, and all of a sudden you get a stop at third quarter, you have a chance, as Mississippi State did last year, to kind of deliver a knockout blow. We didn't do that last year and ultimately lost the game. But we've got to get off to a good start. How many times last year did we have a scoreless first quarter? It seemed to be kind of just par for the course that we're going to be down 10-0 after one and chasing the game. I think in order for Mississippi State to show some maturation and kind of move forward here, we got to make sure that we're getting off to good starts. The evolution of this offense would suggest we should be able to score more in the first quarter. And that was a big issue last year for us. And I've got a little more on that, but before we move on to that, one thing Cramsey said too was he spoke very complimentary about Mississippi State's defense. He talks about how big and physical we are up front and how our linebackers are very athletic, and he thinks we've improved on the back end. He goes, they're what you want a defense to be on your team. And so, again, we have seen him in practice, and of course they're practicing against Mississippi State, right? I mean, so it's tough to really form a strong opinion. But the athleticism in that secondary this year is better than it was last year, especially at the safety position. So we're starting to kind of hear some of that. And listen, I get it. Coaches are not going to give any bold material. I think you're going to consistently hear people talk about Mississippi State's defense. Now, if we can pair up a good defense with a great offense, we really got something here this year. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this defense because I think we're going to be able to cover on the back end. I think we're going to be able to get to the quarterback a little more. But let's real quickly look. We talked about, last year, first quarter scoring. Okay, so Mississippi State wins game 1, 35-34. Well, we won the first quarter 14-7. And then gave up 24 straight and had to score 21 in the fourth, and at the time, the biggest comeback in school history. But again, you win the first quarter, you win the game. All right, let's look at the NC State game. Again, State wins the first quarter 7-0. We won the game. Now you're 2-0 when you score first, right? The University of Memphis, what do you know? We didn't score first, and we lost the first quarter, 7-3. And guess what? We lost the game. You look at LSU, what do you know? LSU wins the first quarter 7-0. We lose 28-25. You're 2-2, but again, you're 4-0, right? When you begin to look at our point here. Our point is when we win the first quarter, we generally win. We go on the road and play Texas A&M, and guess what, folks? We won the first quarter 10-7. And we won the game. So now we're 5 for 5, right? We're about to be 6 for 6 because Alabama won the first quarter 14-3 and the only blowout of the year for Mississippi State. Mississippi State takes a 10-0 lead into the second quarter against Vanderbilt, and guess what? We won the game. We won the game. Now here is the first anomaly to our theory. Kentucky gets ahead 7-0. They win the first quarter, and State, of course, dominated the middle portions of this game, and we won. So it's the first time that the winner of the first quarter didn't ultimately win the game. Then we go play Arkansas, and guess what? We're down 10-0. We get down 10-0 in the first quarter, and you know what? We lost the game. Auburn, another anomaly here. They get up 14-3 as you would expect, and we come back and win the game 43-34. Of course, Mississippi State dominates that second half, outscoring them 33-6. Tennessee State would get up 21-0. Of course, we win the game. Egg Bowl, 6-3. We have the lead. So you see my point here, and you could even add Texas Tech to it too, 10-0. So that's a pretty good sample size. When we win the first quarter, we generally win the game. When we are ahead by 2 or more scores, we generally win the game. And so it's extremely important for us to get out of the gate, kind of control our emotions a little bit, not doing things silly, because that's kind of one of the things that happened last year too. We came out pressing a little bit, and we have a turnover. I go back to that Memphis game last year, and I've mentioned that Woody Marks fumble several times. I am in no way being critical of Woody Marks, right? Now, he'll tell you he should have hung on to the football. The only fumble he had the entire year, and it just happened to be a very significant one, and we're rolling right there. And even when they scored, we thought, we're okay. Little did we know what was to come. But again, you give up 2 non-offensive touchdowns in that game, and you lose. You got to make the offense make plays, and I think you've got to put pressure on them by forcing them to kind of match you. You hit the ground running, and it's so much easier to play defense when you're ahead. You can be aggressive because the worst things that happens, they tie you, right? So you can kind of pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. So if State can get ahead a couple scores in this first half, I think there's a good chance that your defense can really begin to exert itself. And I can tell you, Zach Arnett has been like a mad scientist in practice, so much to the point that offensive coaches, they've had some things to say in the spirit of competition, right? I mean, it's not mean-spirited or anything, but, it's like, oh, okay, all right, we'll figure it out. So I think what Zach Arnett has done not only has he inspired his group, I think he has actually forced this offensive line and the pass protection component of this offense to have to improve just because of the fact of the looks that they see in practice. They're not going to see much of that. Now, Memphis is moving to a 4-man front, which will be interesting, right? Matt Barnes, of course, was defensive coordinator last year. He's a guy, too, got some extensive experience. Began coaching at Delaware Valley University. I don't know if you've heard of that. Then he was at Western Virginia Wesleyan. Finds his way onto the staff at the University of Florida. Worked there as a graduate assistant. Becomes a defensive analyst at Michigan. Special teams coordinator and linebackers coach at the University of Maryland. And then he goes to Ohio State, where he is a special teams coordinator, assistant defensive backs coach there for a couple years, too. Now he is a defensive coordinator at Memphis. So while he has worked at some pedigree programs, he's not had a lot of play calling responsibilities. And so, Memphis defensively last year, 98th in the country. So we'll see what happens. And so the thing that I think about is, even though this is a very competitive team last year, we talked about that earlier in the week, the only time they really got blown out was Houston, and that was about a 31-13 game. Most games were within one score. But you've got changes in philosophy and personnel of a major variety on both sides of the football. So it's a tough first game anyway. You're going on the road into an SEC environment for a fan base that is hungry to win, that the cowbells will be clanging. That's a tough deal. And so we have to take full advantage of that. I think Mississippi State really has every advantage right here. It's just going to be, can Mississippi State play within itself? Can Mississippi State play the game the way they should? All right, time for today's top 10 list. Spoke with Blair Chandler yesterday. You can visit him at closewithblair.com. Love Blair to death. And so what's interesting, I won't break anybody's anonymity here, but I got a call yesterday from a friend. I'd never talked to this guy before. He's a Boneyard listener. And he had a friend that had used another lender. They were trying to buy a house in Mississippi. They used another lender, and things didn't work out. And like all of our Boneyard listeners, they sprung into action. Said, hey, listen, I listened to the Boneyard, which is the gospel. And Steve always recommends closewithblair.com, Blair Chandler. So lo and behold, they get a hold of Blair. Guys, in 2 weeks, we're clear to close. Somebody else couldn't do it. Blair did it. Blair to the rescue. Blair Chandler to the rescue. What a cool story that is. So I called Blair. I said, hey, I got this phone call, man. And he goes, oh, dude, it's so crazy. He goes, man, I got the tip. Next thing you know, I'm on the phone, and, hey, here we're good. And so, again, maybe you've had a negative experience with another lender, and maybe it's somebody that really wasn't as motivated to take your unique circumstances and go be your advocate with underwriting. That's what Blair Chandler did. So a success story there. Blair tells me, too, he's got a couple of Boneyard loans in the pipeline ready to close now. Right? So join your fellow Boneyarders when you have your mortgage needs, whether you're looking to refi or buy a home, and go to closewithblair.com. Mention to Blair, you heard about him on the Boneyard, he's going to pay for your appraisal. Give him a call or text today, 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. All right. Good job, Blair. And best of luck to our Boneyarders that were able to find some success there. I mean, can you imagine how anxious that is? We've all gotten a little financially strapped at times, and it's like all of a sudden you can breathe again. Blair out there doing superhero work. Okay, so today's top 10 list. So our buddy Gordon Griffin sends a variety of suggestions, and sometimes they require more effort than I can put in at times, but this is one that was right up my alley. Right? So Gordon says, hey, how about debut singles? And you know what, Gordon? I love the topics. We're going to do that today. Top 10 debut singles from rock bands. I'm not doing any rap, and I'll be honest with you this. I read that I could do my research right and make sure I'm not missing anybody. Our number one song wasn't even on the Rolling Stone Top 100 debut songs. Let that sink in for a second. And that's one of the reasons, like when I was an aspiring journalist in college, I was thinking, one day I want to write for Rolling Stone. And I am so glad now that my name is not associated with that. Because what's happened is Rolling Stone has become a caricature of itself. I don't like their politics anyway. I think we should keep politics out of music for the most part. But the reality of it is, I look at this list, and it's like, oh, we got all these hipster doofus bands that didn't sell any records. Oh, this debut single from this band that sold 15,000 copies. You got people out there selling albums out of the trunk of their car, and you've got their debut single in there, not because it was impactful, but because some editor somewhere liked it. Give me a break, man. Our list, our number one song, the number one greatest debut single, perhaps of all time, was not on the Rolling Stones Top 100 debut singles. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, number 10. This one was on there. Hailing from the great Northeast, one of the great American punk bands of all time. It's the Ramones with Blitzkrieg Bop. That was their debut single. And incredibly, probably the biggest hit. Even though I like Sheena is a punk rocker and I Don't Want to Be Buried in Pet Cemetery, they did that song for the Stephen King movie. The Ramones, and I've got some friends that recently told me that they'd seen the Ramones years ago and talk about how you're never going to get a chance to do that again. I have a CBGB shirt because of the Ramones. All right, number 9, a little more modern, and it's not modern, but it's more modern than the Ramones. A band that went on to superstardom. And I remember the first time I heard this, a rock station out of Hattiesburg. I can't remember the name of the station. I was out riding around. I heard this. A couple days later, I went out and bought the CD, and I loved it. It's Oasis with Supersonic. I love Oasis. I love how pretentious they are. I love how Noel and Liam Gallagher are just so over the top with ego. They're rock stars, man. Oasis is incredible. And, of course, many of you got to know them better, with Champagne Supernova and Wonderwall and things like that. But for me, it all started with Supersonic. I love the percussion on that one. Number 8, we're going back to another punk band. We've had the top 10 list for them recently, even though their catalog was rather limited. I encourage you, if you hadn't done so, watch the Hulu series Pistol about the Sex Pistols. And, of course, the lead single. And what better way to open up that irreverent band but Anarchy in the UK. It's been covered by everybody. But Anarchy in the UK, I can even play it on guitar. Steve Jones and I are probably about especially as skilled at this point in our careers. All right, number 7. This is a little bit lower on the list than some of you will agree. I don't think it's their best song. I thought it was a great opener, kind of opened our eyes to what was happening in Seattle. And it's Pearl Jam's Alive. Number 7, most significant debut single is Pearl Jam's Alive. And some of you are going to say, but Steve, what about Smells Like Teen Spirit? Well, here's the thing. You're showing your ignorance there. Like all those kids that go to Spencer's Gifts and spend $25 to get a Nirvana shirt and walk around and look cool, you don't know what you're talking about. Smells Like Teen Spirit was not the debut single. Wasn't even the debut album for Nirvana. How about that? All right, number 6, and I've got this ahead of Pearl Jam, and part of that's because I see this more as a classic rock thing. A lot of millennials are loving Africa by Toto. I don't even think that's in the best top 3 or 4 songs from Toto most days. Some days you can convince me otherwise. But I go back to the very beginning, and Steve Lukather, an incredible guitarist. It's Toto's Hold the Line, number 6. Love Isn't Always on Time. I love it. The vocal's great. The song still holds up, too. All right, number 5. Some people argue this is America's greatest rock band. I think you could make that argument. I don't agree. I probably have them second. But it's the Eagles dropping a Glenn Frey song. It's Take It Easy. Did you know that was the debut single, right? Take It Easy. And there were times that, the Eagles were kind of country at times. And I think the Glenn Frey songs are the better songs. I know you Don Henley fans will message me. And I love Don Henley stuff too, don't get me wrong. I love the Joe Walsh stuff. I think Glenn Frey was an incredible songwriter. All right, number 4. The leader of the greatest power rock trio of all time. I recently had this discussion with some friends. We're talking about who's the best trio. We could probably do a top 10 list of power rock trios over the years. And so somebody was like, well, I think it's Rush. Well, I think it's Cream. I think it's this person. I was like, you're all wrong. It's the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And then everybody's like, dude, you're right. Jimi Hendrix Experience, the greatest trio of all time. And we're going with Hey Joe. Did you know that was the debut single for Jimmy? Right? It's incredible. Think about that. All right, number 3. Again, one of America's greatest rock bands. I would say certainly in the top 10. of a true rock band. They had a sad ending. The debut single from Boston's More Than a Feeling. And that's a song to this day that holds up. The composition of that song is near flawless. The guitar, incredible. The vocal, absolutely impeccable. It is a classic song in every sense of the word. All right, number 2, and an interesting story about this one. I believe this is America's greatest rock bands, and I will die on this hill. Their catalog, incredible. Big hits on every album. You know, some albums are filler for a lot of bands, just kind of rush it out there. And even in their drunken and drug-induced stupor, Aerosmith was able to deliver big hits. Their debut single actually didn't become a big hit until after their second album had been released. It's Dream On. Think about that for a second. Aerosmith, this unknown band out of Boston with Columbia, they dropped a single, nothing happens. They hit the road, Selfie Records, record a second album, and then because of the strength of the new album, they re-released Dream On, and it ends up being a huge hit. One of the greatest songs written in American music history. Finally, I remember where I was when I heard this song for the very first time. I've shared this story with you in parts before. I had been to North Park Mall. I think we'd been to the movies. You race home and try to watch Headbangers Ball. You watch Headbangers Ball. You stay up late. You're visiting with your friends. And after the show is over, this new video came on. I never heard of this band before. And all of a sudden, I found myself calling MTV to ask them to play the video again. The next day, I went out and bought the cassette and eventually the CD. And I have it on vinyl too, just in case, right? We're talking Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle. A song that changed a lot of things in music, man. And let me give you a little context here. So, the West LA Hollywood type deal, West Hollywood, West Coast scene, everything had kind of become very cookie cutter in many respects. And that reemerged later. But when Guns N' Roses hit the scene, there was an authenticity to them. It's like we used to see these, long-haired pretty boys and, spandex clothes and things like that. And, they would talk tough, but you didn't believe them. But when Guns N' Roses and Axl and Slash and Duff and Izzy and Steven Adler hit the stage, you were scared of them. It's like, I don't want to bump into that guy and say the wrong thing. There was some authenticity with these guys. One of the greatest rock bands of all time. Hopefully we're going to get some new music from them. Of course, they're out touring again. But Welcome to the Jungle took Guns N' Roses from absolute obscurity to superstardom, basically because MTV played it as an overnight to appease an A&R guy. There was an A&R guy with Geffen Records that constantly said on MTV, please play these guys, please, please, please. And I think they played him at like 2 a.m. It was incredible. And at that point, things changed. And Rolling Stone did not include it on their list of top 100 debut singles. Absolutely. Again, it's an indictment on Rolling Stone. You guys are terrible. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Book Mart. Our friends, we love Campus Book Mart. A great group of people doing a great job for a great fan base. Be sure and go check them out when you're in town this weekend. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. By being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll save you some money. Use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Now, if you're coming to town, the Bully Shop is now upstairs. Downstairs, just kind of warehousing, kind of employee offices and things like that. So you don't have to walk down the stairs anymore. Everything's upstairs. Wives, listen to me. Your husband will tell you he knows. He doesn't. It's upstairs. Great selection, great pricing. You're going to be very pleased with what you see in there. It's a much different place. And again, Miss Kathy Brown just doing a fantastic job kind of getting all that together for you guys. So more to choose from, more to select from, as always, at Campus Book Mart. That's campusbookmart.net. Promo code BSR. Okay, let's take a quick look at our schedule. We will have two SEC teams in action tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to watching those. Matter of fact, I'll probably cancel chat so I can flip back and forth and enjoy some college football. I didn't get a chance to watch the the Vanderbilt-Hawaii game. I was on my way back from an event in South Mississippi. So our first game, 6 p.m. kick on the SEC Network, Ball State at Tennessee. Tennessee, a huge favorite in this game. I think Tennessee can be largely vanilla in this game and probably win going away. The line, we talked about it earlier this week. Does Tennessee cover? I don't know. But Tennessee will certainly win this game. I don't think there's any question when you begin to look at that. I mean, I just think that the Tennessee Volunteers are going to be one of those surprise teams in the SEC this year. I think I don't know that people fully appreciate that. They're not going to challenge for the East, but they're going to be awfully interesting. They're going to be awfully interesting. I like this Tennessee team. Ball State went 6-7 last year. Don't know what they returned. They did make the bowl game. They were in the Tax Act Camellia Bowl against Georgia State there in Montgomery, and they lose 51-20. But a 6-6 regular season a season ago. But Tennessee, I think, will have no issues at all with Ball State. Ball State will be fun to watch in the midweek. We love action. All right, the 7 p.m. kick is going to be Louisiana Tech and Missouri. I think this game could be interesting. Missouri is a pretty big favorite in this game. I actually like Tech to cover. Missouri will win, but that Tech offense, you never know what to expect, but the Missouri defense was just so bad last year. It's like, how could you have any confidence on them covering a big spread? I don't know that you can. I do like Missouri to win. I think Tech probably covers, but that Missouri team, Eli Drinkwitz, kind of an offensive guru, did a great job the 1 year at Appalachian State. And Drinkwitz has kind of made some comments. Has got some people like, who is this guy? So you'll get those 2 Thursday night games. We'll open up Saturday morning. 11 a.m. kick, Sam Houston State at Texas A&M. That's also on the SEC Network. So if you're tailgating, you'll be able to watch that one. That'll be a dog of a game before we get to some really good ones there in the afternoon. No line on the game. A&M should win going away. You could probably pull 11 kids out of the stands at Texas A&M and probably compete against Sam Houston. All due respect to the Bearcats, but I like A&M to win big here, and they should. Number 6 team in the country, hosting at home against an FCS team. Now, the afternoon, a lot of intrigue in the afternoon games. A lot. Oregon, number 11 at Georgia. Number 3, Georgia, the defending national champions. That'll be an ABC broadcast and a 2:30 kickoff. I love the game. Now, Georgia lost a lot on defense. They also lost an offensive coordinator in Jim Moorhead, so some new things there. I just don't think Oregon matches up at all. I think Georgia wins the game and covers here, and Georgia is a considerable favorite considering Oregon's the number 11 team in the country. I don't know that you're going to be able to properly judge Oregon based on how they play this weekend. But Georgia at home is always tough. Of course, Stedman's still back under center. They've got an offensive line there that'll be really good. And Kirby's a defensive guru, too. They'll be good to go. It could be a game for a half. I just think that Georgia ground game will prove to be too much. The same time on ESPN, a 2:30 kick, Cincinnati at Arkansas. Now, Arkansas is 19th, Cincinnati's 23rd. And of course, Cincinnati lost a lot from a year ago. Cincinnati made the playoff. Luke Fickell, one of America's best college football coaches, they will be prepared to play. I don't think there's any question. I think this will be an amazing football game. I also think Arkansas's ability to ground and pound will be the difference in the game. KJ Jefferson has emerged as a star in Fayetteville. I think they feel great about the direction of their program. And Sam Pittman is a guy, too, that, he was an offensive line coach. They're always going to be strong up front. And offensive linemen want to run block. That's what they want to do. They want to fire off the line, move people around. KJ, a good enough passer to keep linebackers honest and kind of keep guys from getting downhill on him. And if you bring those 2 safeties up, they will take a shot over the top. Now, what do they do without Traylon Burks? It kind of remains to be seen. You don't have that guy out there on the flank, to depend on anymore. But I like Arkansas in the game. I think Arkansas probably covers here. But this could be a really fun game. A really fun game. Now, Troy, 3 p.m. kick at Ole Miss. I have no expectations here of the Trojans to make this a game at all. I think Ole Miss, even though there's been a lot of talk about spotty quarterback play there, I think Ole Miss would have to beat themselves. I think Ole Miss has got to go out there and probably just implode in all phases of the game. I think Ole Miss wins this game handily, as they should. That's also an SEC network broadcast. That will come on right after the Sam Houston Texas A&M game. But Ole Miss, again, should win handily. And again, we'll watch that quarterback play. It's a thing. A lot of discussions. I had an NFL scout told me that Luke Altmaier was right there with Jackson Dart. And if it's even, you probably go with Dart. But Luke Altmaier, our Starkville High School product, has not backed away from competition. And there were people talking about the Dent kid might actually be in the mix too. I don't know that I believe that. But no matter who plays quarterback, Ole Miss should win this game. And look for Ole Miss to run the football up more this year. I think that's where their stars are on offense, is in that running game. And they do have some veterans back on the offensive line. Didn't return intact, but they should be in good shape, especially in this ball game here. Again, the first half of this Ole Miss schedule, very, very easy. Okay, the evening kicks off with an ESPN broadcast of Utah and Florida. I love the matchup. Absolutely love it. I don't know if it was a Dan Mullen decision to play Utah, but I love the fact that Florida and Utah are playing Power 5 opponents head-to-head in Week 1. I love this Utah team. I watched them last year a couple times, saw them in the bowl game. Of course, I am rooting for the Chad Bumpus Express here against the ghost of Dan Mullen. Dan's no longer there. And I think, too, Florida, new schemes on both sides of the football, good personnel. They've obviously recruited pretty well. So it could be an entertaining game. I like Utah. Utah now a favorite in this game. I think the last spread I saw was 3 points. Utah to win and cover here. Florida's going to be good, though. Don't get me wrong. Florida will be an 8-4 type team this year. Not great. They'll be good. Miami, Ohio is at Kentucky. Kentucky a big favorite in the game. Kentucky should win this. Miami, Ohio, the Redhawks, you don't expect much from them. If this is a game in the second half, Kentucky's in trouble. I'm not sold on Kentucky, and I think I say that every year, and last year they won 10 games, so it's hard to me for to sit here and speak with any authority about how Mark Stoops had done a good job there. He's done an amazing job at Kentucky. I don't think that they're above an 8-4 team. I think, again, they'll be a solid bowl team, and maybe that's what all they want at Kentucky is, a team that maybe is a solid bowl team every year and occasionally contends in the East. I just don't think they can beat Georgia, and I don't think they can beat Tennessee this year. We'll see what happens in Florida. But I have them as an 8-4 team, losing to those three teams and then losing to Mississippi State. They could beat Ole Miss, though. We'll see. All right, Mercer at Auburn. Come on. Auburn is expected to be the worst team in the West and potentially the worst team in the SEC. They named T.J. Finley, former LSU quarterback, as their starter. And we'll see how things go. I mean, you go out and get Zach Calzada from A&M, and now he's running third team, and there's some talk that he might be a little bit nicked up. The Bears of Mercer have no shot. I mean, R.J. Yeager could probably get out there and make some plays for them. Here's the reality of this, is that Auburn should win this game handily and get off to 1-0, and so it'll kind of quiet some of the talk about Harsin, because we're into the season now. You got to go out and dominate these games. And if Auburn struggles in this game, it's only going to intensify all that talk. Elon at Vanderbilt. I guess one could make an argument Vanderbilt's the best team in the country right now, right? They went out there and hung 63. Elon, one step up from the University of Phoenix. They've had some good baseball programs at times, but football-wise, they're not going to be able to compete. Vanderbilt, the bottom of the league against a team that even if they were at the top of their league, would not be able to match up from a personnel standpoint. I like Mike Wright to run in this game for some big numbers. So Vanderbilt looking to get off to a 2-0 start. Utah State, and it's interesting, Utah State, I mean, it's like you look at their numbers from last year and you're like, hey, these guys weren't bad, right? They weren't bad. But you get Alabama. You get Alabama right out of the gate. And that's not to say that Utah State's going to be a bad team this year. They went 11-3 last year. We talked about that a little bit on Monday. Did you realize that? These guys won 11 games last year. They won the Mountain West Conference. So this is a team that's used to winning. They're playing Alabama. There are a lot of teams that come out there with a game plan. And like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a game plan until you get punched in the mouth. Alabama will punch them in the mouth. I don't think there's any question. But Is it a game for a quarter and a half, and then Alabama exerts its dominance in the second half? I think so. I think Alabama rolls in this game, though. I really do. I think Alabama is going to be plenty motivated to start the season. And Utah State, despite their success last year, just won't be able to match up. That's an SEC deadwork game. Memphis, of course, at Mississippi State. We spoke about that at length. I like State to win, and I'm going to pick State to cover 2. I know the spread's around 15 or so. Will probably go down a little bit as we get closer, and people will freak out saying, hey, what's going on? I just think there are a lot of people out there that don't have a lot of confidence in Mississippi State. We're going to talk about that in the last segment of the show. Georgia State at South Carolina. I think this could be a better game than people anticipate, but this is the coming of Spencer Rattler. Generally the team with the best quarterback wins. It doesn't matter if it's Pee-wees or the pros. The guy with the better quarterback generally wins the game. Georgia State had a good year last year. We mentioned earlier they won a bowl game this past year. South Carolina, again, a little bit ahead of schedule. I think it's going to be a more difficult year this year, but if Spencer Rattler can catch fire, if he can be the leader they need him to be, could be a better year. I don't see him winning more than 6 or 7 games, probably closer to 5 and 7. I think they're going to struggle with the big names in the East. And they may struggle with Vanderbilt, too. Vanderbilt nearly beat them last year. But Georgia State, I think, will make this a competitive game for a half, and then South Carolina will take over there at the end. Now, Sunday, 6:30 kick, we get Florida State and LSU. Neutral site game down in New Orleans, which is basically an LSU home game. It's a great place to go watch a game. That's an ABC broadcast. This one is, it doesn't have the luster maybe it did a couple of years ago or even 5 years ago. You think, man, Florida State and LSU are going to play a non-conference game. I can't wait to watch it. Florida State 5 and 7 last year, LSU 6 and 6 in the regular season, and they get blown out in the bowl game because they didn't have any players, because guys were opted out and guys were COVID. There's all that kind of stuff going on. LSU with Brian Kelly will be ready to go. I think Mike Norvell and those guys are coaching for their job this year. They will come out with some reckless abandon. I just don't think they have the personnel to match up with LSU. I don't think this is a great LSU team. I think this is a very mediocre Florida State team, though. I like LSU to win. I think the fact that the purple and gold people will have had a couple of hurricanes and Pat O'Brien's before the game, they will be good to go. A lot of juice in the stadium when LSU plays. Doesn't matter if it's home or away. People want to beat LSU, and LSU always seems to have some type of magic in their back pocket when they need it. And so be careful on Bourbon Street, Seminoles. Be very, very careful down there. There's voodoo in the streets. But I like LSU to win. So here are your winners. Tennessee, Missouri, A&M, Georgia, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Utah, Kentucky, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, LSU. So the only team we have dropping a game in the conference this weekend is Florida. And again, I think Billy Napier and those guys are going to be okay. I just think they've just bit off a little more than they can chew here in week 1. And next week's going to be a fun week too. It's like this week is a fun week because it's the first week, right? You look at next week real quickly, man, there are some really intriguing games next week. Alabama's at Texas, South Carolina's at Arkansas, Wake Forest is at Vanderbilt, and the Commodores could be going 3-0. Missouri is at Kansas State. What a cool game that could be. App State at A&M. Tennessee's at Pitt. Samford's at Georgia. Kentucky's at Florida. Central Arkansas at Ole Miss. That's a laugher. San Jose State at Auburn. Southern at LSU, and then Mississippi State at Arizona. So next week, a really good game to watch football. So that gives me a programming note for next week. After I record the Wednesday show, I'm going to start the drive to Arizona. Say, Steve, you're driving? Yes, I am. I'm going to make some stops along the way. I'm going to take a couple days away from the computer and all the rock show planning. I'm just going to take a couple days, kind of get my mind straight. I didn't get to take a vacation this year, so I'm going to get out and go see some things. I'm going to go see the grave of Billy the Kid and things like that. But I will bring my equipment with me, and I will record the Friday show probably somewhere in New Mexico. How about that? And then we'll go down and cover the game on Saturday, and then we'll start to drive back on Sunday. So I'm eager to get out there. I've been out west before, but I haven't had time. I've just been passing through. But I'm going to take a couple days and get out and go see some things and kind of get excited about that. So after Wednesday's show, and I'll remind you, I'll be leaving, so I probably won't be around the message boards or social media much on Wednesday and Thursday. I'll get caught up Wednesday night. I'll probably get somewhere, out there in West Oklahoma and spend the night and get up and finish the drive on Thursday. But then Thursday night or Friday morning, we'll record a show for you. And so you're not going to miss shows. And then I'll be back Sunday night. We'll have a Monday show. And I'll recap our trip to Arizona, hopefully a win. So just be mindful of that next week, as if you're looking for me, there's a good chance that you're going to have to kind of work hard to find me. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by Portico. Pretty cool stuff, right? Portico. If I was moving to Starkville now, this is where I'd move. It is a great little community out there. You don't have these big yards you got to cut, so that's a selling point for me, for sure. I think it's important to kind of understand that. But the reality of it is that many of you have thought about making Starkville your home, whether it be part-time, full-time. Maybe it's your ball game weekend retreat. Maybe it's your retirement home. Maybe you're thinking, you know what, I'd love to be able to live kind of in the shadows of the Mississippi State campus and be close and be able to go to everything. Go to baseball games and women's games and softball, everything. You'd be able to do it all. I mean, that's what our lives kind of revolve around here in Starkville. Between your kids' sports, it's Mississippi State sports. There's always something to do. So maybe you're thinking about that. Let me encourage you to reach out to Brooks Bryan. My friend, your friend, a friend of Mississippi State. I love Brooks. Brooks loves you. Brooks loves me. We're all one big family. 601-416-8075. 601-416-8075. Brooks, part of this great group of individuals bringing this wonderful residential development to Starkville. Go by and check it out when you're in town. You turn off of 82 on 12, like going to campus. The very first right is Pat Station Road. You go to the four-way stop, and then Boomer's Portico right there on the right. You take a turn, just go see for yourself, and you'll see how great the construction is, how well-designed the neighborhood is. You'll be glad you went out there and checked it out. And once you see it, you're going to think, you know what? We've always talked about it. Let's do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. Make Portico your next move. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about expectations for the season. I think I've shared that with you guys several times. My expectations for the season is I think we're a very solid bowl team. How good a bowl team will depend on how we handle the toss-up games. If we do a good job in the toss-up games and we win more than we lose, good chance we end up in Florida for Christmas. How'd that be, right? That'd be super cool. But there are a lot of people out there that just don't share our enthusiasm. Now, some of that is because we are kind of conditioned to be a little more optimistic about our teams. Some of that is because of the fact that people don't do their homework. We are a veteran team this year. We have a lot of SEC snaps under our belt. And, Brian Haydad is my friend, and Brian makes this point regularly on his show and on Sports Talk Mississippi about how is it really out-of-the-box thinking to think a team that returns this many starters could win one more game than they did a year ago? I say no. And it's conceivable we could win a couple more games this year. You could potentially win 9 this year. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, we could drop a game, too. But I think when you look at our schedule, and yes, we trade Vanderbilt for Georgia, it's really not different than what we do most years. Now, it's important for us to go out there and handle our business at Arizona. Yeah, and certainly we got a game against Memphis this weekend that is, that's a losable game. If we do what we did last year, if we gift them 2 touchdowns, and we did, one of those that the officials had a big hand in. You give a team like Memphis, it's a good G5 team, you give them 14 points, you're going to be in a dogfight. Now, I believe that our team, even though Mike Leach plays that stuff down and the players will never say it publicly, I think they want to make a statement this weekend. And I think this will be a bit of a barometer about our team this year. If we go out there and play that game like the Louisiana Tech game last year, I think maybe we've overvalued this team. Now, if we go out there and we handle business, and win 3-4 scores, then I think we can get really, really excited. But I think probably the more objective Mississippi State man figures we're going to win this game, a couple touchdowns or so. And that's around what the line is. Maybe we win the game 31-17 or, something like that. I think that we're going to be able to score a little bit more than that. But the reality of it is that you can't make a lot of snap judgments about a team after week 1. That said, based on our experience and the fact that Memphis is in transition in many respects, they got good culture up there. They're going to come out ready to play. I don't think there's any question. But Mississippi State doesn't need to win this game 35-34. We need to go out there and take charge early. And I mentioned that earlier in the show, how important it is to get off to a good start. When we win the first quarter, we generally win. When we lose the first quarter, we generally lose. And one of those games that we came back to win, of course, required the greatest comeback in the history of the program. I don't want to see that. We saw the two most historic comebacks in school history in one season last year. I hope to never see it again the rest of my life. Because my hope is we never get that far down to a team. And it's like, hey, you can never give up on Mississippi State. But my hope is that we can have more of a sense of urgency. You know, I know that Mike Leach likes to run some things early in the first quarter. You go out there and script some plays to see how that they're kind of planning to defend you. And when you've got new coordinators, you can go watch film from other programs. But the reality of it is the personnel doesn't always line up. And so you got to go out there and kind of run some dummy stuff and kind of figure out what they want to do, and then you know how to attack it. If Mississippi State can go down and score on the first drive, that'd be absolutely huge for us. I believe in this defense. I believe you guys are going to believe in this defense. I think it's the best defense we've had since 2018. Now, I don't think we've got 3 first-round picks on this defense, but I think we do have some future pro players out here, and we're going to get after some people. I think that is probably the one thing you can rest assured in. Defensively, we are an improved group. There were times last year in practice, you'd have busts, and you'd have more busts, and then more busts. And yeah, have there been some busts this year? Absolutely. I mean, when you're playing young players and moving guys around, you're going to have some of that. But there have been much fewer of those. There is also this confidence and an esprit de corps among this defense that I don't know that existed last year. They really cheer for each other. It doesn't matter if it's first team, second team, the Bandits, the scout team, whatever. If the defense makes a play, everybody on defense responds, and then they talk trash about it, right? There is an edge with this group that I don't think existed last year. And I think part of it last year is we lose Jordan Davis for the year in fall camp, and then we've got to do some musical chairs last year, but Jordan Davis too. Everybody understood who he is and what he could do. And all of a sudden, everybody else had to kind of strap it up and get a little more serious about their jobs. And then you begin to think about, our safety play. I mean, it was terrible in 2020. It was terrible. And last year, it was better, but it wasn't good. This year, you go out and you work the portal and you get Jack Matthews, and we're better. I think he is a difference maker for us, and we talked about him on the show consistently. But the thing that I would say is, like all these other people out here saying, well, Mississippi State's going to go 6-6, and let me share with you this. None of those people have been to a practice. Zero. They hadn't been to a practice. They didn't come in the spring. They hadn't been out there in the fall. But they want you to take them seriously. I hadn't been to anybody else's fall practices either, so I don't know exactly what they have. We're all just kind of picking games. But I say that not to throw a shot at them, but to tell you at the end of the day, we're all just kind of guessing based on what people have returning. Our picks are really not educated guesses other than the teams that we're covering. I think the reality of it is that, because of the fact that we have seen this team improve at some positions of need, there is a lot of confidence. And again, I don't think we're going to contend for the West. I think we're a very solid bowl team. I think we take another step forward. I think Will Rogers will kind of demand that of himself and the people around him. Will is a great leader. He's a fantastic leader. And I think it's important to kind of understand that. Leadership and culture matter in college athletics. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't have good leadership, you don't have good culture, you're not going to win. You're not going to be able to out-athlete people and win a lot of games. You can get by a couple Saturdays with that, but at some point, you're going to face some adversity. And I think we saw that last year with Will Rogers. I mean, how many times last year, think about the Louisiana Tech and the Auburn game. We could have simply just said, you know what, it's not our day. But we didn't. And a lot of that starts with Will Rogers. And it continues with Emmanuel Forbes and Jet Johnson and Buki Watson. There's some guys out there that are like, hey, we're not going to give up. And we're going to play to the last snap. And lost in that big comeback against Auburn is the adjustments we made on defense. We couldn't stop them in the first half. And then Zach Arnett's group absolutely destroyed him in the second half. And you say, well, some of that had to do with Bo Nix getting hurt. Yeah, that's right. That's right, because we began to put pressure on the quarterback. We'd be able to touch the quarterback. It's incredible how you impact the game when you make a quarterback uncomfortable. And I don't just mean mentally. You get out there and you put a little pressure on him, get him on the ground a couple times. The next thing you know, you've got some guys out there that begin thinking, hey, let's keep these guys off the quarterback. There is an emotional lift when you can put hands on the quarterback, even if you can't put him down. That's why everybody responds the way that they do. We should be better at pass rush this year because I think we're going to be better at coverage, and all that kind of works together. I don't think we'll have to cover as long because our pass rush is going to be better. And I think when we do have to cover, I think we're going to be able to generate some coverage sacks. And so I'm eager to see what Zach Arnett dials up, especially when you look at Tim Cramsey's comments about kind of getting the ball out early and kind of getting these little small 4 and 5 yard gains on first down. So do you squat? Do you bring those guys up and do you press? That kind of remains to be seen. But I think it's important to understand here as we get ready to play a college football game in just over 3 days is that this is the best group of personnel that we have had defensively since Mississippi State hired Mike Leach. And Zach Arnett is a guy that has aspirations of one day being a head coach. And so this is not a guy that's going through the motions. He's trying to elevate his own brand. And in the process of that, he's going to win you a lot of games. And so I think it's important to kind of understand that. But, you can run through the list here. Let's look at what CBS did. That's our parent company. And I don't agree with all these folks, but I'll share with you the CBS Expert Picks, right? All right, so they started with most overrated team. So a handful of people here said it's A&M. Said A&M. I don't know that that's accurate. I think A&M is going to be pretty good this year. A couple people said Tennessee. AP voters have the Volunteers as 26th team in the country. Coaches aren't far behind. That's aggressive for a team that still has a long way to go defensively. And that's probably true. I think when you look at the scope of everything in the conference, though, you begin to realize, too, that they're going to benefit from playing in the East. It's interesting. David Cobb says that Ole Miss is the most overrated team in the conference. And, Dave, I tend to agree. Here's what David Cobb had to say. Lane Kiffin's Portal King nickname is accurate, but not even the nation's number 2 transfer class can replace what the Rebels lost with quarterback Matt Corral, offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby, and defensive coordinator DJ Durkin. Corral was a sold last year's 10-3 team. And the staff turnover will cap what this team can accomplish in the sport's deepest division. An easy non-conference slate plus the annual game with Vanderbilt make it a relatively simple to project bowl eligibility for Ole Miss, but this team will take a step back. I think that is a very accurate portrayal. And also, too, that when you look at these transfer class rankings, it's based on quantity over quality. Well, if you're going to go out and get 15 guys in the portal, well, yeah, your portal ranking is going to be higher. But when you begin to look at the totality of things, is that the way to do football? Also overrated, Jerry Palm says LSU. He goes LSU, most overrated team. I think LSU's probably about right. Most underrated team, Cobb says Florida. He says Florida's not getting enough love, and he may be right. Billy Napier is a really good offensive-minded coach. But I think this year they're gonna do well, but they're not gonna be elite. Dennis Dodd says Tennessee is the most underrated team. You had some people earlier saying they're overrated. He says they're underrated. And this is interesting. You'll laugh at this. Cobb says Ole Miss overrated. He who should not be named says they're underrated. Too much has been made of the absence of Corral, and not enough has been made of the upgraded running back score, versatile receivers, tight ends, and a quarterback situation that at the very least is stable. What you're really telling me is you don't know. You have no clue what's going on. With Kiffin at the helm, that stability transforming into excellence is more likely than not. Completely disagree. Nobody in the country replaces both coordinators, loses a professional quarterback in Matt Corral, not to mention has to completely retool the running back room and gets better. I don't care what the defense looks like on a consistent basis. Well, of course not, because Ole Miss is going to click in a big way against pretty much every team it faces. Bookmark that. Patterson says LSU is underrated, and Tom Fernelli says Mississippi State is underrated. And let me read you his comments. And again, you can find this at CBS Sports. Fernelli says, has any SEC program flown further under the radar this offseason than Mike Leach's Mississippi State? We're talking about a Bulldog team that returns a veteran quarterback familiar with all the ins and outs of Leach's playbook and nearly all the production from a defense that was better than most realized last season. The Bulldogs are going to pull off at least one major upset and finish higher in the SEC West than most expect. I think Tom is right. And then Jerry Palm says Kentucky's underrated. I think, how is that even possible? How can Kentucky ever be underrated when there is this love affair in the media? So let me read you the hot takes from the CBS article. Some you'll agree with, some you won't. But here are the hot takes from the CBS Sports crew. Dennis Dodd says Mark Stoops will win 10 at Kentucky, and then he will leave and go to Auburn. Interesting. Tom Fernelli says every team in the SEC West will go bowling, but only Alabama and A&M will win more than 8 games during the regular season. I agree with that too. Tom, I absolutely agree with you. Chip Patterson says Vanderbilt will hit its over-under win total by the end of September. That's a possibility too. They could be 3-1. They could be 4-0. And of course, he who should not be named, Ole Miss will run the table during the first 2 months of the season. The Rebels will hit a bye week on November 5th with a battle against undefeated Alabama looming on November 12th. If they can spring the upset, haven't we already had this before? Coach Lane Kiffin's squad could make a legit push for the college football playoff. Oh my gosh. It's like Yancey Porter wrote that. All right. Sheehan, I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Jerajay. After an overwhelming divisional favorites, Alabama and Georgia, no other SEC squad finds their way into the postseason top 10. Maybe. I don't know about that. Dave Cobb says year one of the Brian Kelly experiment will go poorly as the ex-Notre Dame coach experiences the nation's toughest division for the first time. Tigers will miss a bowl game but finish with a top 10 signing class. I don't know that I agree with that. I think they'll find a way to get to 500. I don't think there's any question. Jerry Palm, the SEC will put 2 teams in the college football playoff again this season and have a third team in the top 6. Well, that's pretty much the case every year. All right, the predicted order of finish. Let's see who we should go with. So, Dennis, I guess let's just skip to the West. Let's talk about what we're doing, okay? What's happening with us? What is everybody projecting for Mississippi State? All right, Dennis Dodd has Alabama, A&M, LSU, Arkansas, Ole Miss 5th, Auburn 6th, Mississippi State 7th. That's a joke. Tom Fernelli has Mississippi State picked 4th. That's probably a 4th or 5th. Chip Patterson has State picked 4th. He who should not be named, of course, has Mississippi State picked last. Sheehan has Mississippi State picked 5th. David Cobb has Mississippi State picked 4th. Jerry Palm, Mississippi State picked 6th. So most everybody has this middle of the West. Of course, it's just so stupid. But the reality of it is that I think some people, and you would think we would graduate from this, it's like as we aspire as people, it's maybe we would just kind of stop trolling people. It's like I'm going to say positive things about Ole Miss and negative things about Mississippi State every year. I'm going to do it every year, right? Well, I'm a Mississippi State guy, right? And so that's kind of what we do, right? Now, I was fair. Last year, I told you Ole Miss is a better team than us. We gave Ole Miss credit for winning an national championship. But let's not get crazy with this stuff, man. It's all stupid. But I wanted to give you a sampling because I think it's important to understand that at the end of the day, everybody's guessing. But also of note that there is a wide range of opinions outside of Alabama winning the West because I think it is absolutely wide open after that. I do think A&M is a really good team. I think that's a big game for us. And I think our season hinges on what is our record between Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Kentucky. If we can find a way to win 2 of those 3, it's going to be a really good year. If we don't, it's going to be an average year. We're still going to be a bowl team, but the reality of it is those 3 games, I think, define the season. I think we all probably realize that Alabama and Georgia are probably the closest thing to a sure loss. And, Georgia coming in here, we'll see. We did a good job against them last time. But, we'll see. But outside of that, it's wide open in the West, for us to make a move. And when that's the case, the veteran teams generally win. Arkansas lost a lot last year. They were a veteran team last year. Ole Miss, a veteran team last year. They had a chance to kind of take a step up. Auburn struggled. We had some challenges at times, but we were better than a year ago. But this is a year for us, I think, to really take a step forward in the West. And maybe it's short-lived, but I think we certainly have a chance to finish, around 4th, maybe 5th. I think these people that voted us 6th and 7th are just people that just simply didn't do their homework or simply have an axe to grind when it comes to Mississippi State. So I think it's important to kind of understand that as we move forward. What's going to happen is when we win some games early on and we show some flash, people are going like, hey, well, look at this. Well, hey, that's what we were telling you 2 months ago, idiot. There's a lot of that out there. It's like, hey, I'm just going to do this because I know how Mississippi State people are going to respond on Twitter. Stop giving these people attention. I mean, we talk about it on the show sometimes just to kind of provide some context. But, there are some people that are never going to like us. And there are some teams that we're never going to like. And you know what? All that's perfectly okay. And here's at the end of the day, too, none of that stuff matters on the field. It's like all these preseason prognostications, it's just stuff to talk about. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's just something to talk about. So be mindful of that as we move forward. And because there will be people, like when we win a few games or maybe we win a game that we shouldn't or whatever, then you'll be tempted to go tweet at these people because it feels good to remind them of their idiocy, right? I'm going to ask you not to do that because I think we should act like we expect to win. I think we should kind of carry ourselves as like, hey, why would I be out here celebrating in the streets when we beat Texas A&M again, right? I've said this a few times before. There are a lot of people who cover sports who don't know sports. And maybe somebody makes those arguments about me. Maybe a lot of people know more than I do about sports. But, here's the thing that I point out to you, too. The last, let's look here. What was this? Last 8 games. I guess you can even go back as far as 10. The last 10 games between Auburn and Mississippi State, you know what our record is against them? It's 5-5. But according to the SEC media over and over again, they'll tell you, well, Auburn's a better program than Mississippi State. We're 5-5 in the last 10 against them. 5-5. Wonder how many people in the SEC media know that. Wonder how many of them did their research. It's like, no, Mississippi State. It's just Mississippi State, right? You know what our record is in the last 10 against Arkansas? And a lot of people would tell you Arkansas is a better program than Mississippi State. You want to take a stab at it? It's 7-3. Mississippi State 7-3 against Arkansas in the last 10 years. Wonder how many people in the SEC media have kept up with that. What do you think? Of course, there's, this for some reason that we've got this media darling thing, with Kentucky. Mississippi State actually leads the all-time series against Kentucky, 25-24. Wonder how many people knew that? Let's go back. You start looking at this stuff. Do you know what State's record is against Kentucky in the last 10 years? What would you guess? It's 7-3. And so what do we need to do to get some respect? Not that it's worth a whole lot, but we talk about these toss-ups. We talk about these games. We talk about all these teams that we play. And I just think that, maybe some people are kind of fine, with us just kind of slipping under the radar. And at the end of the day, what matters most is you win. Let's throw in one more. Let's look at A&M. State's 8-7 overall against A&M. In the last 10 years, that series is 5-5. And State has won 4 of the last 6 in the series. And in one of those years that we lost, A&M should have been in a playoff. And so, again, I look at this and I begin to ask myself, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? People don't do their homework. So those are 4 teams that people talk about and they look at and they say, well, Mississippi State is not on that level. Well, how are you judging us? How are you evaluating if it's not the outcome of games? Maybe it's your own personal power rankings. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe you're right. As we talk about the Ole Miss thing, and last year really stung. But the last 10 years we're 4-6 against Ole Miss. But you hear other people talk, because Lane Kiffin gets on Twitter and he's cute and he says funny things and stuff like that. I guess that's not true. Yeah, we're 4-6. But the perception does not match reality when it comes to our football program. And think about the fact that we had a couple difficult years, and then we're still right there with our SEC contemporaries. We're right there, have a winning record against most of them in the last decade. And so poke your chest out a little bit and pretend you know something that they don't know, because these people that are forecasting failure for Mississippi State don't know Mississippi State, and it's apparent they don't know the recent history in these series against teams that are considered to be our contemporaries. All right, if you hadn't done so, go to dogpilethebook.com and you can get signed copies of Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, and Stark Villains, as well as Dogpile, Bloomsville, Leander, available on sale right now at Amazon.com. Go be sure and check it out. Maybe order it for your wife. Give it to her as a gift. You'll be glad you did. Stark Villains gear always available at starkvillains.com. And again, let me encourage you too. If you hadn't bought your tickets for the Lily and Axe show, I encourage you to go do that. Even if you want to buy them and gift them, and you can email them to me, and I'll make sure they get in the hands of Mississippi State students. And we've already had a couple people step up and say, hey, Steve, I guess maybe I've got a dozen of them so far. Said, hey, we want to buy tickets. We want to support the show and support the endeavor and support the initiative and support Mississippi State. You can do that too. And I'll make sure that those tickets get used, and we'll have a good time. It's your expense. Be sure and visit eventbrite.com, or you can find a link on all my social media stuff. That's it for today, guys. We'll be back on Friday, and we'll talk a couple SEC football games, and we'll look ahead for the weekend. And you never know what's going to come up between now and then. We'll be eager to talk some sports. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
JCPenney is helping hardworking families across America save even more all Labor Day weekend. That's right, we got you. Celebrate a 4-day super savings weekend with 20% off already great prices. Plus, save an extra 10% across the store. That's extra savings in addition to our huge end of summer deals. Grab your coupon on the JCP app and save all you want. Shopping is back. JCPenney. Coupon required and valid on select styles 9.2 to 9.5. Exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.